Ian and Tricia Hunt with us, and certainly parents who have got children at school, no matter whether it's the US or the UK, we're all going through difficulties. And something happened today which was rather strange. Over in England, they do a thing called, I call it pods and bubbles, where I personally believe the bubbles and pods should be a little smaller, but sometimes it can be a whole age group of a couple of hundred children plus in a group. And a few things have happened, and I want to give you an opportunity to understand what's going on in education back in the UK. And Tricia, if I can start with you, you've got a daughter that goes to school. What happened today?
So I got an email this morning to say that there's 350 students now self-isolating from the school. That's ranging from year 8, year 10, and then there was one case in year 11, and my daughter's in year 11. I asked the school why they haven't now shut the school down, or at least shut down year 11. Given the fact that it's only year 11 today, we found out that 60 students have had to self-isolate. And I was told that is down to the Department of Education as to whether or not the school can be granted permission to close a year group bubble down. And at present, they only had permission to shut year 10 down and not year 11, even though 60 children had been told to isolate today in year 11.
How many children are at that school in total? How many age groups have you got at the school?
So you've got year 7, which starts at the age of 11, up to year 11, which takes them up to 16.
Okay, so there's a lot of kids.
Yeah.
And prior to this pods and bubbles, that I like to call it, has been working, but we all know that something was going to happen, didn't we?
Well, yeah, we've got one school local to us that has literally had to, within the last week, shut the school down completely because they are getting overrun with COVID cases and children having to self-isolate, that it wasn't productive to keep the school open.
Okay, Ian, if you would, sir, would you tell us what's the process of a child going to school and then entering the school from the moment they leave the house to getting to the school, and what goes on when they reach the school?
Well, lucky enough for my daughter, we take her to school. Other children go by buses that are laid on by the school and paid for by the parents of the children. So they're a mixed group on the buses. They're a mixed group after school while they wait for their buses. They've only recently been told that they now have to wear face masks in school. The teachers are not meant to be given them any utensils like pencils or paper or anything like that, but we know that that's been happening. And as far as I can see, the worst thing that is happening is that they're still not, or do not seem to be taking this seriously. My wife, Tricia, who's just been on, she has a lung infection. My father passed away a couple of months ago, and my mother is now living with us. And my daughter is now being basically forced into a situation where she has to go to school where there has been proven known cases of COVID, where if you're lucky, you might get one of those stupid thermometer guns pointed at your head to know that you haven't got a temperature, and we all know they don't work.
Now, when they get to the school, are they going through one line, one door, or what are they doing?
No, they're all over the place. They're all going through different entrances in their supposed bubbles. So their bubbles are bursting, but not everybody is being sent home to isolate. And so they've got numerous entrances. Nobody is actually making any notes as to who might have a high temperature or who hasn't, or any of those sorts of things. It's point a gun, wait for it to go green. Yeah, okay, you're fine. Off you go.
So literally that's going into the school, and during the day, even though they're in a bubble, they're still commingling with other students in corridors and stuff like that. Tricia, is that happening?
Not in, they're only mingling in year group bubbles. So the school is sectioned off, which has gone for most of the schools now. It's a one-way system normally throughout the school, and different year groups are given different areas of the school.
So they have got a traffic control situation, which I suppose is working. But again, they're very, very large bubbles. Now let's take it. It's the end of the day. We've got all these little bubbles, and they're leaving the school. What do they now do, Tricia? What happens for them to get home?
Well, my son goes to a different secondary school, and they all come out together. They were staggered entry and staggered leaving, but as of this term, they all went in at exactly the same time. They all leave at exactly the same time. So the bubbles during the day seems pointless as of that time that they're leaving school. My daughter's school, they all leave staggered-ish, but out of their different areas of doors. But then they all congregate at the bus bay, where all of them mix all over again.
So they now get home. They've been mixing like crazy, and we know how it's. Are they wearing masks at that point, or have they now taken those masks off?
Well, they're told to. My son said no one does wear them going into school or going out, and my daughter says that as soon as they get to the path near the bus bay, everybody takes their masks off.
It's like Ian, like you and I used to do. You get outside of school and have a cigarette, right? That was back in the day. All right. So literally now they're going home. What are the children and the teens being told they should do at home? Are they given any rules and regulations? Because now they basically have got, 14, 15 hours at home. So are there any rules and regulations about mixing with people or anything?
Well, yeah, we're told that, we had this whole incident actually with my daughter. It was her 16th birthday party. And I said to her, you can't have anybody here because the law says that you can only mix with 5 other people. There's only a group of 6 at that time. And she said, but I was with 200 of them today. And I said, yeah. She said, so what? I'm allowed to mix with 200 of them up till 3 o'clock, but then after 3, I'm only allowed to mix with 5. I went, yeah. I mean, now it's a case of, because we have gone back into a second lockdown, so now it's no mixing of households, but the 200 people that she's been at school with today would have mixed with another 200 people, and then they've mixed with another 200 people, and so on and so on. So the first thing we do as soon as they come home is go and wash your hands, which they do. But what do we do when they're mixing with that many people at school, and those children are then mixing with their families, and it is just a roller coaster of events? How do you then say to your child, but you're not allowed to go out and now mix with anyone? Try and explaining that to my 10-year-old son just doesn't compute.
No. Something Ian said earlier about people aren't taking this seriously. How are they taking it? This is a killer, but it's not just the killer side of it, because, like, for instance, you just mentioned that sadly your father passed, and our prayers to all of you on that. But your mother now is living with you, which she is a vulnerable person. So really, the school and the British government couldn't care less, could they? So who is taking it seriously?
I disagree. When I spoke to the school today, because I rang them straight away and said, I've just been sent an email to say that a year 11 has been tested positive for COVID. You've now got 60 students, because they were obviously in close contact with this person, that are now self-isolating. But you're bearing in mind that one person is in that bubble, and at lunchtime or break time, they can only all be in one place. So that child has mixed with 200 people, whether or not they think he has or not. He has, because he would have spoken to Bob. Bob would have spoken to Kev. Kev would have spoken to somebody else. Somebody else would have then spoken to my daughter. And the school completely agree, and they want their staff and their children safely in school. It is the government that is saying no.
Okay. So we've got a government. Ian, if I can go back, when I talk about serious, and you know, serious is serious. Where do you think this is going to go? Trisha's just said it's the government. So what can the school and parents like yourselves, and it's only going to be en masse that you can do this, because you two are just a singular voice, if I may say. Okay, but where do you think Ian it can go on this? Who needs to get kicked up the rear end?
There is a complete lack of any type of duty of care by the government, and it's happened time and time and time again. When it all kicked off back in March, we're now in November. They've had more than long enough to sort out being able to teach students from home. They've wasted billions and billions of taxpayers' money on things that have never worked, never helped, and are still failing. And they can't provide broadband and laptops to people that can't afford them, so they can learn from home. We have the technologies available, but no, they want to just keep wasting taxpayer money and providing solutions that just destroy our economy, when they could have literally have spent that money on using technology in the correct way to be able to deliver education to our children. Instead, now my daughter is at school trying to learn in her final year, and now she's worried about bringing COVID back home and killing her nan. And I think it's absolutely disgusting.
I think we better be a bit of honesty here, if I may. Ian and I know each other exceedingly well because we work together daily. And we as a company, Integral, 17 years experience of pandemic. But let's just go back to when in March we started, Ian, and we have amassed more information on COVID technology than anybody else. That's an absolute fact, go globally. And you mentioned the word technology, and earlier you said those stupid little things they're pointing at your head. Again, those things do not work. And basically the Asian market, or the Chinese market, as I will say, you are using those devices and just letting COVID walk in the door. And I appreciate Trisha saying about the school wants to do it right. From a technological point of view, Ian and I can tell you about how we can now take temperatures, and I mean perfection, to the nearest inner core temperature of a person walking into a building with virtually not stopping and checking everybody. You see, the one thing, if I may, testing is an absolute waste of time at the moment en masse. Because you can test in the morning, you've got to wait 72 hours or a week to get the results back. So you're still wandering around, not knowing if you got it or not. And you could catch it even if you haven't got it in the afternoon. It's
Elon Musk, Nicholas, Musk only yesterday had 4 tests concurrently by the same nurse, the same equipment. He passed the test twice, he failed the test twice. What? A cruise liner today. First one that sailed out, everybody was tested 3 times before they went on there. And guess what? There's people on there with coronavirus right now.
I mean, that's the stupidity of it. But I don't want to get it. Technically, no joke, folks, we have an answer. It's not just the technology, it's the logic that goes with it. And we know we've got that logic, and we're working it here in the United States very, very well, because people are starting to listen. They're suddenly gone, oh, they could be right. Well, take some time and listen.
Just look at what we've been writing back in March. Only now are they starting to do it.
Well, think about this. The government yesterday on the mink farms, I wrote an article last week, and I think word for word, they copied what I wrote. I mean, even my grammar is there. Okay. So wake up.
Even Biden's talking about duty of care now.
Yes. Yeah. Well, don't talk now. Don't let me go there. Do not let me go there. I want to do this though. And Trisha, you're not within the company, but you are, because you're married to Ian and you know what we do. You have offered this school our technology, and I believe in a 24-hour period, no longer, they can see this work of being able to know the temperature, the correct temperature of a person coming into the building, and whether they need to be pushed to one side, not pushed, but placed to one side to be tested. So it saves money, time, and effort there. What was the reaction when you offered this particular teacher, I won't say the head teacher, but the guy the technology? What was his reaction?
Well, I'd mentioned to him that I've sent emails to all of the local schools around here, around where we live, mainly for just trying to do something. That, we can't do a lot as a human race other than trying to help each other out at the moment. And because we had the technology, I wrote to all the schools or emailed them and said that we would be willing to place the camera into their school. And I said for a week, so that they can try and do every student for a whole week. And I've heard nothing from most of them. When I rang my daughter's school today, I actually spoke to the gentleman that I'd emailed, funnily enough. And I said, I did email you. It didn't actually go through to the correct inbox, but he said, I will take that to a head teacher. That sounds like a great idea. And I said, we're not asking you to buy it. You're not under any obligation. We just want to try and help in a small way. And then just write a little something to say how the trial went for you and how you felt the equipment helped you within the school. But I've heard nothing from anyone else, nothing. I even wrote directly to my son's head teacher, just saying that I was willing to offer the equipment to them for a week, unless they needed it for longer, just for them to trial it, to see whether or not there is anybody in their school. They could have somebody in their school that's been there for the last 3 or 4 days, that's been running a temperature. And just because your body may be running a temperature, you may not feel it. You may not feel ill as such. That person could be the one that's the main one that's going in, a bit like the year 11 at my daughter's school today. We're not saying it's a solution. We're saying it's something to help towards, just to get those people, like you say, placed to one side. Okay, don't come in until your temperature has, dropped, or self-isolate for 14 days, just in case. Over here at the moment, you're not allowed to have a test unless you're showing symptoms. So if you do have a temperature, that is a symptom. You will be able to then be tested. At least then your family will know whether or not you are a high risk to them and to everybody else, or whether or not you have to self-isolate. I've got my daughter's working from home at the moment. If my daughter is sent home from her school today and told to self-isolate for 14 days, that's all of us have to self-isolate for 14 days. But if I knew she had a temperature, which I will be checking every night with the equipment that we've got here, as soon as that temperature goes up, I can then be granted to get her a test.
See, this is the crazy part about testing and temperatures and everything else. I will add, by the way, folks, those that you are seeing this, we're going to be putting it out on YouTube and a podcast and what have you. And we will give you some technical background into what the device is. And it is unique. It was created between the US and the UK, us, as of March, and it's out there working like a dream because we are absolutely catching it. Let me give you an example, if I may. I want to try this in like 30 seconds. The canthus, which is your tear ducts, the camera from a distance captures your temperature from your canthus. The temperature of the canthus or tear ducts is between, and I've got to do these in Fahrenheit because remember, we in the US don't do centigrade and metric, all right? We literally 93 to 97 degrees Fahrenheit is the temperature, depending on if it's morning or it's afternoon or your age. So we're able to see that, and that's the normal range. If it goes 98, 99, then we need to talk to you and say, look, there's something going on. You need to double check yourself. You don't have a fever yet, but something's building. And that is 48 hours before your fever is actually going to show there. We are now detecting with our system that something is going on. If somebody then comes in Fahrenheit again, 100.3, 100.4, you've got a fever. Remember, a virus, the way a virus works is immediately it's pushing the problem out. And the way it pushes it out is with temperature. And that's how we start to know. But we are ahead of the curve, and literally we can do the right thing. Now, you've offered them this. I hope to God they take it. And in 24 hours, first of all, when I did a demonstration, not a demonstration, we were asked to do a candidate forum here, 2 of them, in the United States, where we had hundreds of people coming in. And instead of using the guns, we used our system. We only had one person that we had an issue with. And when I say an issue, the highest temperature I got was 97. This guy walks in, his eyes were very, very close, and his mask was literally up to the corner of his eyes. It was cold outside, I mean, just above freezing. So they're walking in, and literally he was showing 101 degrees. And I went, wait a second. I'm looking at the guy, and I'm social distance from him. I said, pull your mask down a ½ inch, will you? Straight away went back to normal. The heat of his mouth, because he'd come from the outside, was coming up into his tear ducts. So we saw this raise. We'd never seen that before. So we learn as well. But we've got to be able to have that front line and front door protection, which is going to save a lot of people. And they've all got to come in one door. We're not going to ask them to slow down too much at all. It's still social distancing. We know how it works. We're not here. And if somebody out there is going, yeah, but all you're doing is you're having this chat for one reason. You're marketing. Yeah, we're marketing something that works and can protect people. It's just like the first person who came out with the bulletproof vest. Well, you're marketing the vest. Yeah, but it saves lives. Oh, didn't think of that. You were just a marketing company. So, Tricia, I appreciate what you said, and Ian as well. But I just wish to God that these people start understanding, because we can't go on the way we're going. You've got it as bad as we have. You've got a government over there that is as stupid as every other government. And it's not just UK, US, India's got the same problem. Australia's got the same problem. New Zealand believes it's got rid of it all. But isn't it weird that islands in the middle of nowhere, including in the Amazon jungle, have got COVID, but nobody's been there? I mean, it is spreading like wildfire, and we've got to do everything. Any last thoughts, please, Tricia, on what you want to see happen?
What I want to see happen and what I see happening are 2 different things. I don't think the education minister here has a handle on the situation at all within schools. I think he's making children sound or look stupid. Children do not want to have time off school for the sake of having time off school. They are worried. My daughter was supposed to be doing her mock exam starting next week. They've now been pushed back 2 weeks because there's too many off self-isolating. If this camera was in the school, maybe, just maybe, they would have caught that year 11 student way before he tested positive for COVID and brought it into the school.
Okay, Ian, last thought.
It's a tool that's available. It's a tool that's available to them for free. I don't even actually understand why they're even thinking about it. And it's not a fever scanner. It doesn't know. It doesn't have a clue if you have a fever. What it does is it checks your temperature. And if your temperature is within a band, it is down to whatever procedures you already have in place for COVID to take over. It's a bit like facial recognition. It's not judge or jury. It takes a person to do something about it.
Well,
Just one other thing I do want to point out.
Yes, sir.
Is from a GDPR perspective, we actually do not have a color visible camera in use in our system. So there is no way of checking who that person is against their temperature, which is perfect for school use.
Yeah, privacy is very, very important. And all I can say is that we need to push this as hard as we can. This is not something, let me put it this way, and I'll use this. We've been playing the COVID game since March.
I'm getting really fed up with saying to myself, I told you so.
Oh, yeah, you and me both, it's, and to let people know that Ian and I and the whole team, my day in the United States starts at 3 a.m., which is 9 a.m. his time. And we converse, we look at the stories, we look at the information that's going back and forth. And by the way, right now, the strain of COVID, everybody's tests are basically on the D strain. That's gone. It's now a DG strain, and none of the tests are being looked at. And 99% of all cases now are the DG strain. And now we're moving into the N strain.
So what does the vaccine cover?
Yeah, well, this is the problem. The vaccine is just like a flu shot. When you get a flu shot, you're getting last year's chance, and it's only about 40%. And literally on the vaccine here, when you start looking at the Pfizer deal that's been done in the UK and US, and them saying it's going to be 90%, I personally believe that's baloney, because it's not going to happen. If we look at all of the viruses and we look at all of the vaccines, and we're talking about 1873 was the first time a vaccine was issued for smallpox. Way back, they called it cowpox back then. And it took forever. And it's only, if we look at 1988, we still had a mass amount of polio across the whole of the world. And now in 2020, it is eradicated down to a couple of countries only. But it takes a long, long time. Even though we've got the technology, we as humans, our body, our technology, the technology is not changing your body. It's still the same DNA. It still reacts the same way. So even though we got technology to speed things up, are we speeding it up for the right reasons, and are we getting the tests? I want to thank both of you for spending this time. I'll put this together, and we'll get it to you and get it out to your friends and anybody that's viewing this. When it's been passed to you, do me a favor. Do the same thing that COVID's doing. Spread it around, okay, so people can see it. And we'll do another one of these conversations. But both Ian and Tricia, look after the family, look after your daughter, especially your mother. I ask about her every day. So look after it. But thank you very, very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.